Hey, what's going on, everyone? It's David Palmer, the Leo King, here on highvibe.tv for the show After Dark, the spiritual talk show. Of course, we are always here live streaming on highvibe.tv, and then we do premiere the show on YouTube afterwards. And of course, please join highvibe.tv, because not only do we have this awesome free content, but we have awesome content for subscription, and especially like shows like Deep Astrology, where you can get the full show live, and you can also watch it with all the charts and so forth on highvibe.tv. So much awesome stuff on there. Tonight, of course, we always are doing the open discussion in the spiritual realms and connecting with you, the viewer out there. And we love always hearing from you. You can comment underneath the videos that are here on High Vibe. And you know, it is such a great time to be alive. And I'm so excited to be alive with all of you out there, but all the guests that we have tonight. Tonight, of course, we have Sarah Posh, which is in the house. We got Dylan, the Spirit Advisor. We got Jax Atlantis. What's going on?
Hey, guys.
Hey, guys.
What's up?
Yo. You know, it's funny. I was doing that, and then my ears just started going, "Eeeh." I just was like, It's really weird when you're like hosting something in the middle of it, and your ears just start going.
When you start receiving
a lot of energy is being downloaded on this transmission today. I got a feeling.
Yeah.
I've got a feeling that a lot of energy has been downloading all weekend, all day. I mean, today specifically, I've felt that. I have felt like, where am I? But not in a bad way. It's just felt like there is so much coming in and moving out, and we are just being guided so directly towards wherever we need to be. And the more that we can just follow that and kind of tune in without getting thrown off by it, I think the better.
Yeah. Yeah, it's felt like we've all been recently tested, not just tested with like kind of where are we, but also with the way in which we're going to move about our life. And the funny thing is, it's important to remember the universe doesn't keep putting that same test out over and over again. You know, it puts out this test, we have to sort of meet it or not meet it, and then we have to decide what we're going to do next. And it feels like there's a lot of people right now that are almost like wielding their philosophies, like they're wielding their spiritual beliefs, and you know, they're thinking that they're about to fight against some unknown force, but it's like, no, you have to just fight against yourself right now. You have to fight against yourself. And remember, if your philosophy is correct, if your spiritual belief is correct, you have nothing to worry about. You have nothing to position to other people aggressively. You have nothing to judge other people about. You just have to be yourself. And if your philosophy is correct, then you're good. You know, you have nothing to worry about.
So it's important, I think, to ask what is correct. And I think that's the greatest distinction. I mean, I feel that as much as there is going on right now, at the same time, the choice points are not so touch and go anymore. We're actually manifesting, and we're actually stepping into something that's more based on momentum. So the choices have been made, and right now it's really about owning the choices you have made and the tests you may have passed or the tests that you may not have passed, whatever the case may be for you. It's just about owning that and like owning up to this sense of simplicity. And I think I talked about this last week. It's like there's no necessarily monumental thing right here and right now. I think that's to be unveiled very soon. Mm-hmm. But that's going to be shown based on how you've been living, how you've been showing up, who you've been showing up as, and what that qualifies you for in terms of the next, fork in the road. Mm-hmm. So I think, as much as people are wielding their philosophies, it's almost like a barrier against people's insecurity of what they may feel they have not chosen or they have not been showing up for. So I think that's just kind of the place we're standing right now. It's a really unique place to be, and I think that's why this is such a special show tonight.
Yeah, it's been a very weird and very special place. It felt to me recently like there's this black hole energy. Especially, it's kind of funny because when Jupiter went retrograde in April, we found this picture of a black hole. Finally, we saw one.
Wow. Yeah.
And then there's this whole galactic center that acts very black hole-ish as itself, right? And I felt like I'm just letting everything that spirit is just to move into this new area. It's like we have to drop things and transform first. So it's like this beautiful, like, I wish they had this in real life, like physically. Like if you could just kind of stand in front of this big black hole and just took everything out of your life that wasn't necessary and left everything that was. It just is just like, you know, like it's like future showers, like, you know, like how it would just go and dry you off and do everything. I feel like we're in one of those weird moments right now. It's very futuristic.
Yeah, I would say the simplification is like so important right now, because like it's almost as if we feel like we're letting ourselves down if we simplify our life. Like if we drop that violin lesson, or we drop this other thing that's really taking up so much time in our life and causing all this stress, and it was supposed to be a good thing, and it was supposed to, you know, help us blossom into the person we were becoming. But if we finally drop it out of our life for a second, if it's just causing us stress and not really causing us any joy, it's like you then are freed up with all that energy to start putting it towards whatever you really want. And if, you know, you're full of nervous energy, you're full of anger energy, remember, like, you possess that energy belongs to you. And so having it isn't the problem, it's like what you do with it. So right now it's like, if we can simplify our life, if we can take out all the stuff we don't want, then we can finally start really caring about the stuff we do want.
Yeah. I feel like there's a collective kind of question in the air, though, as to the true nature of this galactic center, because I feel that many people who are starting to consciously participate in these transits and their effect on us are kind of like, what is this? What is this galactic center? What is the implications of Jupiter moving over the galactic center, or even, you know, we have a sun transit of the galactic center every year. What is it?
Well, the last time it was very significant with Jupiter, it was with Pluto in 2007, and late November, early December of 2007. So you'd have to kind of almost like go, where were you at 12 years ago? And I think because the collective conscious was not as awake as it is now, you can actually look at your life and how there was forks in the road. There was big decisions that you were making in your life of like where you wanted to be. I remember in my life, I like decided to, you know, move in with a girl that I kind of was on the fence with that whole year, broken up with before, and was like, oh, I'm going to move in and I'm going to go for it. And it actually did turn me into the portal of not the right road at the time, because I ended up working at a car dealership and I went out of business, and there was a lot of things that didn't work out, but it actually led me to eventually becoming a full-time astrologer and DJ. It was that was the turning point in my life. So I feel it's a very big turning point energy, but I think it doesn't have to be like, from, if you study your life in 2007, like what was that big choice coming in 2008? And you have to remember that every time Jupiter does come to this place, it's also the shift of the Chinese New Year cycle, right? We leave the pig and we're getting ready to come into the rat as the first zodiac sign of Chinese every time Jupiter comes into Capricorn here. So it is a very weird ending of a cycle as well every time from the Chinese perspective. Right? There's just this 12 signs, and it's on the Jupiter cycle. And it's really funny to me that it's on the Jupiter cycle. It's like there's an ending and a closing with the galactic aspect with an opening. And I think that it's about, what did you do then? Because we were about to have Jupiter and Pluto again, but they're going to be in Capricorn for the first time in all of our lives, right? So this is going to be a much different one, since it won't be at the galactic center, where the last one actually, look at your life in 2007 into 8. Look at what happened to the world, right, in 2008. Like, it was a major shift for everybody, not even including the president in the United States, but the world economy, and everybody had to make changes and adjustments, you know?
Yeah, the word choice specifically has been a very specific word that has been coming in the last 24 hours. I watched the second Matrix, The Matrix Reloaded, and I wrote one of the lines, which was, you've already made the choice, now you have to understand why you made it. And then I pulled an oracle card, and it was all about choices, and I've been guided to really focus on less about choosing specific outcomes or desires, but more so like choosing the feelings that you most want to feel, because the potential feels so big. It feels, that black hole feels so vast. It feels so unknown. It feels so big that it's like, don't limit it with a choice that is specific. Leave that choice specific to a feeling, you know, and then be open, be non-attached, and receive. And I think, like, let it shock you, let it surprise you. And when you bring up 2007, I'm like, well, I was graduating high school, going into college, and I remember I was so upset with my mother at that time because she forced me to do sorority rush. You know, I was like, I am not going to join a sorority. I was so anti-sorority, and I ended up going like full throttle into the sorority life, like loved it, got super involved with it, almost put off pharmacy school in order to, you know, work for the sorority in the country. And I just, it shifted my life in a way that I never knew myself to be that person, but now I see that I didn't know who I was. I didn't know the possibility of who I could have been. So what a cool thing to like look back on and to see that we have all these preconceived notions about who we think we are and what we think we want and what we think we need to do next. But what if we don't even know? You know, and what if we're pushed in a way that's like, you know, the simplification and things being stripped away? It does not necessarily even feel like a choice right now. It really does feel like things are dropping and leaving, and Mars coming into Scorpio today has just felt like this, like, what do we need to tie up? Like, it is time to do it. Like, no more time for bullshit. Like, let's focus. Let's put this energy into something, even if I don't even know where exactly that's leading me. I know where it's not leading me. And I think that's becoming really clear too, is we're really clear on what we're not going back towards, even if we don't really even know what is coming next.
Yeah, I've heard the galactic center be referred to as kind of like the sun's sun, in a sense. You know, the sun is the core of our localized solar system, and it's the source of our light, and it's the greatest source of you know, in human design speak, the neutrinos that program us with the transits. And if we look at that from a more macro perspective and seeing like the sun, it kind of feels to me like the most essential truths of us are being either given or taken away, you know, based on the momentum that we've generated to this point. So it's like, what things are leaving? Well, that's probably because you've chosen that aspect of you wasn't one you wanted to emphasize anymore. What things are coming in are a result of what you have chosen since then. And the things that are going to take root, that are going to be that life force, in a sense, in the coming next 12-year cycle. I'm just channeling that.
Yeah, not only that, it's like the simplification in our actions right now is definitely like one way that this can manifest. But, you know, sort of like piggybacking that, it's like a lot of people that I've talked to, almost every single person I've done a reading for in the past 2 weeks has talked about how their relationship with God has changed. And so to me, it's like, okay, so there's not only simplification in our actions right now, there's simplifications in the way we're perceiving our relationship with God or the universe or the source. And that's because of our thought processes. We have to simplify our thought processes. How much extra work are we doing? How much extra energy are we giving to hatred? How much extra energy are we giving to stress or worry? How much extra energy are we worried about, you know, other people like talking shit behind our back, right? It's like, if someone does that, if someone's talking behind your back, then you've been educated. Like, you have the right, you know, as a free person, as a sovereign being, to be angry or sad and all these things, but you could just decide to be educated. Like, you're educated on what it is they're bringing to the table at this time. So simplify our emotions. Don't spend so much and invest so much on hate. Don't spend and invest so much on the intricacies of a philosophy. Actually enjoy the feeling of a philosophy. Because if you enjoy the feeling of it, then it means it actually is applicable to life. And so that's something we can like be a part of right now.
Yeah, I like that. I also feel that there were so many fears that were so tiny, but we enlarge. That's always a Mercury retrograde in any sign, but when it's in Scorpio, it becomes, and then you're like, oh man, I made it through. You know, it's like a haunted house that you're waiting for something to spook you the whole time, and really you're like, the carnies did a bad job, you know? I should get my money back from that horror show. So that's one thing. I think the other thing, going to how Sarah had brought up, you know, I forget that you were a pharmacy tech, but it's the
pharmacist.
Pharmacist, sorry.
It's fine. It's a lot more school.
Sorry, you're right. I know. Yeah, it's correct.
It's a lot different,
right.
yeah.
But it's interesting that that experience is actually still necessary to the person that you are today.
100%.
And what you do. And so I feel that there also is something about when we give into this void and the new experiences that come up, that they're necessary, and to be open to them all. Mm-hmm. Because even though you might look back and go, yeah, that wasn't the road I did choose, in many ways it was a road that was necessary to get you where you needed to go, you know what I mean? And it's an imperative place that we all are going to go. Mm-hmm. I think this will be different than 12 years ago, but there is something to say that it's like having a non-attachment to a lot of things right now and how it should be and look really, I think, helps.
Yeah.
And I think it's a time that, you know, deep within myself, it really just feels like everything is kind of falling away. And it's like, it does feel lighter, but it's like, I like how Jax is bringing up, you know, feeling the philosophy, feeling the things that you know that are core to your truth. And instead of focusing on, well, what left do I have to refill this with something? It almost is like these places of where we need to try and fill ourselves up might be already filled with things that maybe the universe is revealing to us that we already had, that we weren't paying enough attention to.
Yes. And actually, just last night, or maybe it was this morning, because I'm in a transition of, I'm not practicing as a pharmacist anymore. You know, to go from being a Western medicine, delivering medicine in a hospital to patients as a pharmacist, and now being an astrologer and a coach as, you know, main practice, I've wondered, why did I do that? Why did I spend 8 years? Why did I go through a doctorate? Why did I do that? And I have to trust. And I heard today, it was deliver the truth the way that you deliver medicine. So it's learning how to apply the skills that we developed behind the mask of what developed that skill, and reapplying it to what is the soul development that I'm here to do, which is, it is to be one-on-one with somebody. It is to give somebody a dose of something, and it is for them to have relief from something they're feeling. But it's in a different platform, it's in a different variety. And my teachers, and when I was a pharmacist, the pharmacist I worked with and the people that I was around, I had the absolute best teachers. They cared so much about those patients in a way that I don't see pharmacists do, you know? And I'm so grateful for that, because they saw people as people. They connected to them. They remember their names. And it's like simple things like that those things carry over. And so that's the thing, is maybe you don't have to know, but we have to always be open to the idea that we're exactly where we need to be. And it's always connected. As disconnected as something might feel, as right now it feels like there's a big break kind of in the system of our lives. It feels like nothing's really connecting. I'm just going to start completely over. It's just going to whatever. And it's like, it's connected. You just don't understand yet. And I think maybe that's part of the black hole too, you know?
Yeah. Like the simplicity of the power of love. Cause like recently there's been like 100 times where I went classic Libra and was like, oh, well, if I say this, then like this person will do this and they'll probably think this, and this will probably trigger them to say this to this person. And I was like, whoa, like what if I just clear all that out and I just like give this person real love? And if it doesn't feel right to give them love, like if it doesn't feel right to give that kind of energy, then I don't. But if I feel like it's a person that I need to give love to, then I do. And it's like giving love doesn't mean you have some intricate way of showing affection. It just means you have to like be there for the person, and then just like say what you want to say when you want to say it. Like, you know, saying like whether it's actual encouragement or just physically being there. Like loving people isn't really that hard. Like, we just need to give
Right.
people love right now.
Yeah.
And sometimes it feels like the weight of the responsibility from the universal, like quest of being a light worker means that we're beholden to take on like all these tenets and become this thing and embody all this power. And sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is absolutely nothing but in the same room as another person. Like absolutely nothing but like sitting next to someone,
Or even in a different room.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So what I'm really hearing is, if we think of the sun as like our localized source, and we think of the galactic center as kind of like the centralized source of our whole galaxy, because just to paint the picture, we're in a solar system that's a part of a greater collective body of stars and perhaps planets. And it's almost like we're streamlining our connection to that true source within ourselves. It's not even though the galactic center is an external body, in a sense, celestially, it represents that deepest internal source that we pull our greatest gifts from, we pull our deepest presence from, we pull our greatest care and love for each other from. So it's like kind of whittling down and refining and streamlining all the philosophies and the belief systems and basically all of the, outer stuff that we define ourselves by, and making a more direct path between us and what animates us, where we come from, and not just in terms of origin, where we come from, but where are you coming from in this moment? Where are you coming from when you sit with another person in the same room, or a different room, or in the dream realm, however you're interacting with them? And I think that's where the potency lies, and that's where the greatest potential lies, is when we leave that sense of potential open, then perhaps the most authentic and maybe even a little bit foreign to us, because we haven't been able to be that authentic up to this point, essence comes through. And that's where the transformation happens. That's where, you have a chance conversation with somebody at your community pool, and you never know the effect of that conversation, but perhaps you saved someone's life just by introducing yourself, or just by smiling, So I think it's just about source coming through us in a more direct way, and we have to be out of our own way in terms of our mind and our belief systems for that to happen.
Yeah, and some of this stuff is bringing up possessiveness, whether that's you possess or obsessed with things in your life, whether it's physical items, people, situations that you're just like, And tonight when I was doing deep astrology and I looked at, wow, the last time Mars and Scorpio opposed Uranus and Taurus was 1940. And then I looked at, December 1940, and I literally looked at it and it was like, whoa, that day, Gandhi wrote his second letter to Hitler saying, my friend, just quit the war. Please stop the war that you started. And that was it. I was thinking, what if Hitler listened to the letter and wasn't so obsessed with war? And it was the same year that he invaded France and took pictures and hey, I'm here at the Eiffel Tower. This is now, Nazi Germany. So he had that high all year, of I can do this, I can do that. And here's this beautiful message coming in as a friend, somebody who's accepting of the war that he started that's causing disruption all over the world, just being hey, it's okay to drop it. Probably a message from God, to be honest with you. It's almost like we're getting some really get out of jail free cards about some situations that would take us down wrong roads in many ways, right? So it's kind of
that we don't understand.
And it might bring up a lot of ego stuff, right? It's going to be Mars stuff, ego. I can't do that.
That's not the plan.
Yeah.
And notice what Gandhi did too. When he wrote that letter, he avoided. Gandhi was a smart man. He was a very educated man, and so writing that letter, logically speaking, was a stupid idea, right? Why would you write a letter to Hitler, to someone like Hitler? But it's he saw past that. He sort of tapped into the divine in that moment, and he decided to give love to someone that seemed impossible. You can't give love to Hitler. You can't give a loving message that way and expect that he'll respond to it. So you stepped outside of logic and you stepped into the feeling when he wrote that letter. And obviously it didn't end up making the change that, hopefully could have happened. But but you know, I imagine it made some kind of change. You know, it clearly made it into history, and that will forever be almost like part of the painting now. When we look back to, you know, World War II, we'll only see that, you know, against all this darkness and all this red, we're going to always see that sort of like beacon of this white light where he wrote that letter, and where other people, you know, saved people, and where other people tried to reach out and make a difference. And it's like, no matter how dark the situation feels right now, because right now people talk about the world as if it's the darkest place on earth. And even though we're, you know, historically speaking, like richer, wealthier, like, you know, happier to so many different degrees, we have less work to do. We have like more opportunities than ever before. And we talk about it as if this world is like in a constant state of Armageddon. But it's like, you know, if you can step past that for a second and just engage with the love and realize like how much gratitude you should have to be in 2019. Like 2019 is so far the best year, period. Like no matter how you want to describe it, unless you want to get back to like maybe Eden or something like that and say that there was technically a better place with utopia. Like besides that, barring that, 2019 is the best year on earth. So like, what excuse do we have not to write our letters to the person we think is Hitler, you know?
And right, I mean, there's a saying, every saint has a past, every sinner has a future. And it's like, who did Gandhi see Hitler as?
Yeah.
He saw Hitler as a human being in pain, who was causing a whole bunch of stuff because of the wounding that they still carried around with them in that ego mind, in that separation from source. So in that example, I think we have a beautiful model to live this moment out with. When we can look at somebody in our lives, you know, there is that, everybody has that one person that has caused them the most pain. It's probably usually in your immediate family. But if we can see that person in that streamlined sense, you know, that idea of connecting more directly to our source and connecting less to the philosophy that gets in between us as individuals, we have such incredible potency to, you know, kind of link together and hold a frequency that is holding space for a greater outcome. Recently, I had a great session with a client, hi Bonnie, and she sent me this great article afterwards about imaginal cells. And these are literal, it's a biological, you know, proven truth, that these imaginal cells are basically, they're these things within us that carry the mutation for our next form. In the analogy of a butterfly, when a butterfly is still a caterpillar, there's no trace within that caterpillar's DNA that it's ever going to be a butterfly. It's purely a caterpillar. But these imaginal cells start building up in its body as it reaches that maturation point. And at first, they're seen as a threat by that caterpillar's body. So these imaginal cells are attacked as if they're in a foreign invader. But these are the same cells that code in the cocoon. This once caterpillar turns into this genetic soup, and the imaginal cells are what link together and create the new framework for the new being to be born. So I feel like that's a very like potent description of what's happening right now.
That is exactly what's happening.
Yeah, we're kind of activating and kind of downloading, or even just letting, you know, allowing these higher aspects of ourselves that are more connected to the central source to take over. And yeah, the ego mind is going to fight us. The identification with who we think we are is going to be completely at odds with, well, I'm not that weird flying thing. I'm a caterpillar and I'm good at this. I can eat all these plants, and man, I ate a lot and I feel good, la la la.
Oh
but it's like, if only you knew the potential on the other side. And the irony of life is we can't know. And
then we don't need to know. I mean, the caterpillar is a butterfly. So that's also what's been coming as well. And I love that we brought up 2007, because that example is so perfect from my real lived experience of going from high school to college and being like, I am not somebody who is a sorority person, and being like angry about the fact that I had to do that, and then going all in and being like discovering myself. I mean, and you know, it's like such a small example because it's high school and it's a sorority, but it's so real. It's so like, that's what's happening. It's totally what's happening. And it's so messy because we're conscious. Like then I wasn't I wasn't aware of every feeling I was having. I wasn't aware of the fact that I could feel different cells like waking up and my body somatically moving things. So there's a little bit more trauma almost to the experience now because we're so conscious. We're more confused, you know, in a sense. We're more disoriented. It's more chaotic because the ego death is not just happening, but we're aware of it happening moment to moment to moment. And we're just like, what do you do with that?
Which it's dissipating time a lot by doing that. And then at the same time, it was interesting that you brought up, it was just, you know, high school. It's like, I think this is where there are no levels of somebody's going through more than anybody else at this moment, right? A lot of people use like, well, at least, you know, you're not the president getting impeached, right? It must be really stressful for him and right? It's like everybody's trying to go like, oh, well, then I feel better now or something because it's not maybe as extreme. But really, it's like your experience of that transformation is no different than anybody else, and whatever their experience of transformation might be. It could even be like, see, there's no smaller level or there's no higher level here.
Yeah.
This is a big shift where it's like everybody's got to understand we're all going through it. Nobody's more you know, more merit badged up about transformation. But I think what's interesting is as we're doing this right before Mercury comes out of retrograde, the sun is going to leave Scorpio and come into Sag this week. It's like, talk about from one end of the confusion to another instantaneously. And then Mars opposed Uranus to me is like, with the whole Hitler letter, it's kind of like Hitler thought, okay, I'm going this way. And here comes this curveball, like, with unlimited options that he didn't even probably really sit and take in for a second and process. So I think when the curveballs come in this week, it's going to be like, instead of being like, no, I already know I'm going this way, it's like, why don't I actually
not know?
See what's in there at least go to the lobby. It's not like, you know what I mean? It's like he could have at least said, do you want to talk about this? What if he sat Indian style with Gandhi for a week?
Yeah.
Yeah, having an open mind isn't scary if, you know, if you have this clear vision of like, okay, well, I know exactly because of all these transits, like I know exactly where I'm going now. I know exactly what I'm doing. It's like, okay, then it shouldn't be scary to have an open mind. If you know like 100% sure that you're going in this direction, then having an open mind wouldn't be a threat at all, right? And if it is a threat, then that means maybe you're like still like superimposing what you want to happen over your actual quest and over your direction. And it's just like, be open-minded right now. Be open to things changing. Be open to the fact that maybe the quest that you thought is still correct, but it's going to take an exact opposite form. Because and it's honestly like what's triggering these quests I don't think makes a difference, whether it's in your field of finances and it's $1 million deal, or in the form of relationships and a single moment where you finally make a breakthrough with someone, or in your family where you suddenly understand someone that you haven't understood your entire life, and you finally have like that clicking moment where you're like, now I get who this person really is. That can take a ton of different forms, and it's equally valuable. So whether you're a toddler right now and you can't even perceive this, or whether you're like an old man, like, you know, you have equal access to this stepping into the quest moment right now. Take it away, Dylan.
I love the swing of the microphone.
Yeah, because I mean, we don't know what the baby's going to look like before it's born, and
no matter what those scans try to show,
we don't know how much alien DNA that baby has, but then it's born and we have a whole new experience, and we adapt to that with the force of love. And that force of love, what does it do? It changes us. It changes our tolerance levels. It changes what we're willing to show up for. It changes how long we're willing to stay up to support this new life, because there's an intrinsic connection to knowing that our future is held in this new moment. And I think, you know, it's not just about us all being individual caterpillars on our own little journeys. It's about understanding that we're collectively the butterfly about to be born. And when we embrace that greater picture, we can give more of our fixedness up to the pure power of potential and the pure power of our love, of our hearts, and of these fundamental human truths that make life worth living. Because if we were to purely live by the power of the mind and by the power of our beliefs, we would have destroyed each other long ago. But here we still are today because of these enduring truths, these universal constants. And I feel that in this time, we're actually being, against our will, in a sense, our lower will, our egoic will, we're being reconnected to the universal constants that we need that connection. Because if we don't have that regular reconnection to the source, then we can lose the plot. We can get lost in our smallness and our fixedness and our routine and our preferences. And I think these things, while they are guidelines for creating our individual lives, it's like at certain points, at certain junctures, and probably more often than not in the coming future, we're going to have to be able to surrender some of that to the journey we're all on together in this life.
Which is expansion, because I want to fast forward that by the end of this week, we're going to have a dark moon on Mars in Scorpio, exactly opposed Uranus, while Jupiter and Venus, the two benefic, the two brightest stars in the sky, even though they're not stars, they're planets, are going to be exactly in the same spot, the exact moment. So it's like, here's this beautiful two energies that are trying to bring us to this beautiful place, but we are going to have to kick out emotionally. It is a dark moon, and the dark moon in Scorpio is the hardest, since the moon is at its hardest position in Scorpio at fall. So it's like, and then it's on top of Mars, this egoic, extreme, like root chakra ego. And I was talking today on my show about, like, gosh, it's like the masculine energy on the planet's being upgraded. It hasn't been upgraded since 1940. I was like, right? Like, I don't want to be like a guy from then. And what was the root chakra of form then? Because actually, if we're going to use this Hitler story, Hitler does not answer the letter, does not do it, decides to do what he decides to do with his masculine form. But all the other men decide to do the same shit, just with more of like, I'm here to save this from him, and then cause this huge catastrophe of millions of people dying, and this whole entire thing of now this is we're the best and you're not, and like this whole entire masculine thing that went really, I'm not saying masculine's bad, but I'm just saying that at that time that it had a chance to upgrade, and it upgraded using machine guns. It upgraded by using force in a way. And this is, I think, with these benefics coming together about wisdom, even though Dylan's right, it is not the mind, it is not the beliefs that are going to save us at the end of the day, but it is about a sense of, I think, the higher wisdom of a higher source knowing the way and us getting out of the way. Because actually, I think we'll get more of the route that we want by realizing that the routes that we're picking are pretty, I don't know what the word is, but they're not thick enough. They're like kind of twangy, like little twangy little roots, and it's like, I think that there's no more, root in the root.
Yeah, like I was thinking about what Dylan was talking about. I was getting the image of the past to the future, and how we can't look to the future right now based off of the past. It feels like this is a completely different set. And the fact that this is happening while we're building up to the collective Saturn-Pluto, we have to hold that, the paradox of that, we have to hold that in this moment. We can't just say this amazing, beautiful moment of Jupiter, Venus in the galactic center with Mars opposed Uranus. Like, yes, the openings, the gifts, the beauty, it's there. And the paradox of that is in the same moment, we are having a complete shattering of all veils. We are having a complete destruction, a complete resurfacing of all things we've suppressed and gotten away with it. The things that we've successfully put our power into suppressing, that Saturn, Pluto, that are just erupting from the surface, from within in our dynamics. I mean, the systems on systems that have been functioning in a way that worked and are not actually sustainable with our consciousness, with our collective world, like those are shattering. And that is painful, and that is hard. And so there is loss, and there is death, and there is this like gripping at what is happening, and it's beautiful. And I just think we don't know. And we don't know what this next phase is going to look like, but the less we use our mind to analyze and go into the scrutiny of trying to create something based off of manipulating what was or what could be, that's not what this is about. You know, this is about really opening up to this moment, opening up to the black hole, opening up to death, opening up to life, and really saying, I don't know what's next. I don't know. But I'm going to take an inventory of life, of what has been, and I'm going to, and it feels like this Mercury retrograde, by the way, has been a deep healing of like some of our deepest traumas, our deepest, memories of whatever was scattered, whatever was fragmented. This has been deep, and like Scorpio took no prisoners were left behind.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of like we have a bunch of Christmas presents right now that are wrapped up in Halloween decorations. And it's like we can either reject them because they look weird as hell, like because they're wrapped up in all these strange like black and orange stuff. Or we can say, well, what was the intention behind the gift? Like when this person got this gift from me, yeah, they wrapped it in like a really weird way. But like, what is the gift? Does this mean something to me? Is this something that I connect with? And right now we're in this place where everything that we kind of need the most looks like it's something that we need less of, or it's like it's not just about the things that are the scariest, but it's also the things that are confusing and the things that are even oppositional to us. Like if we've been in this like flowing state for so long, where we take pride in the fact that we are unstructured in like a religious point of view, it's like, but what does religion still have to teach you? Because if your answer is nothing, like if your answer is that religion itself has nothing to teach you, or that there's never been anything useful there, it's like you're dead wrong. There's like, that's what created the society that we currently have, the society that allowed you to go in that flow state in the first place. And that it implies to our relationships as well. The people in our life that are extremely authoritarian and overbearing, those are the very people that create the structure that allows us to rebel and say, no more, like, no, I'm doing my own thing. I'm going to dye my hair pink or whatever, like whatever the thing is for you. And, it's like, now's the time to accept the present. Accept the present. Yeah, it's wrapped really weird, but like accept it, take a look inside and see if you might like it.
And I think that a lot of what your work has been about, Sarah, is this re-understanding our connection to grief, and how while we may be living in the patriarchy's house, and that has given us and afforded us the resources, the protection, the space to find a deeper connection to our consciousness, and there's no denying that, it's our work to repurpose how we deal with change. Because if we're to live by those same masculine archetypes of or just patterns of dealing with something changing and something in conflict, more violence, more destruction, just stifle it, destroy it. No, it's about being able to welcome the changes that are happening consciously and lean on each other and the shared human truths that, yeah, change is hard. Change is painful. And the things that are leaving are things that we've loved and cherished. But at the same time, we can't cling so hard that we're in resistance to the change that's coming, or else we're going to relive history. And as any history teacher will tell you, in historian, history repeats itself. And this is where light work, this is where the conscious community, this is where spirituality comes in to be a redirect in how the course of events will happen. And this is the opportunity that we're living through right now. And it's all about how we respond to dealing with change. And it's not about suppressing it. It's not about pushing it down. It's not about trying to hide the unsavory, and it's not even unsavory, the experiences that are so human but so difficult to go through and that are not pretty, that do not make us look strong to others, that do not make us look competent, prepared, wealthy, whatever. We have to be able to welcome these things with grace and still know and trust that on the other side there is a bright future. But we have to be willing to walk through these dark moments and also rely on each other, open up rather than close in when it comes to this pain of change.
Yes, I love that you bring up all that, because in 1999, Jupiter, Saturn were about to meet up in 2000, like we're about to have in 2020. They're in a 20-year cycle. And so hope is really important right now. But at the same time, there's this raw truth that has to be dealt with at the same time. It's not just about pie in the sky, like, yay. And look at your life in 2009 to 2010, because that was the opposition of Jupiter and Saturn. It was like a very hopeful time, and almost not like, I'm dealing with hardship, but fuck it, I'm just going to go into straight hope and only hope, like, and not deal with reality. It was like, now we're like, we want to deal with reality, but sometimes not enough hope. Or sometimes, but what just came out today, or it was in the last 24 hours, was NASA just brought up an Antarctica, not the Arctic. So the Arctic has the lowest amount of ice it's ever had, but it's lopsided now because Antarctica is expanding and more ice than it's ever had. And it made me think about this like really lopsided energy on the planet right now, where everyone is like putting too many eggs in one basket about things instead of leveling back out to an equality spot of just enough about understanding opportunity and hope, and also understanding that shit has to get done in the world, and you have to face your challenges, and they're not really challenges, they're growth. Like, you don't want to just sit in the same place and just keep hoping for the same thing. It reminds me of just the ice collecting, or actually the opposite would be the barren ice that's happening in the Arctics, which is like all the ice is just kind of falling.
Well, it's denial, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like well, there was a fear coming into 2000 of Y2K, and right?
I feel like a really important thing that a really beautiful conversation I had with a friend last week, and she said, we were talking about this. We were talking about how, it seems like there's either optimism and hope, or there's just pessimism and honestly crabby people. And it's like, when did we start to say that realism is the opposite of optimism? Right. And that is the marriage of Saturn and Jupiter successfully. And if we're going to revision Saturn, because that's what we're doing, we're revisioning Saturn, and Saturn, conjunct Pluto with the fall of the patriarchy, the rise of the matriarchy, this reintegration of collective humanity. It's like, let's optimistically get real. Yeah. Like, let's learn how to optimistically deal with reality. Let's work with circumstances. Let's stop fighting ourselves. Let's stop fighting reality. Let's stop fighting death. Let's start trying to have power over ourselves or death. You know what? Like, we don't want to feel something. And so what happens is we push it away, and it comes back in all of these other places. That's what happens. When you don't feel something, it doesn't go away. You project it on other things and other people, and you can see it. You can see the effect, because everything around you starts to dwindle. Like an account, it starts to dwindle. These people are affected. Your relationships are affected. Other things are affected. Whatever it is, your health is affected. It doesn't go away. And if you go into an emotion and you over dramatize it and you make it bigger than it is because you're like, this is all that's real, that also isn't effective. That's not actually real. That's not actually, sitting with yourself. That's not actually healing. So yeah, like, thank you for bringing up my work. Thank you for mentioning that, because it's been really important lately for me, even personally, to feel like a coming home to this, to be like, I love astrology. I love high vibe. I love talking about all of this. But at the end of the day, if we don't know how to sit with ourselves, if I don't know how to sit with my pain and yours, if I don't know how to sit with my joy and yours, and my pain while you're in joy, or your joy while I'm in pain, like, then there's no point, And it's like, let's get real together with love. Let's write Gandhi letters about it.
Yeah, I would say it's, and it comes down to having like a respectful friendship with hope, a respectful friendship with optimism, a respectful friendship with pessimism and realism as well, because they're all useful. But it's like, if you rely on one, then you're not being a friend. If you essentially rely on just one of those things, like let's say just hope, like if everything that you do is dependent upon the fact that you hope that things will work out, then that's not a good friendship. You're essentially, that would be like, if I was
codependent.
Yeah, exactly. It's codependent. It's unhealthy. And it's like, anyone I hear who essentially, you know, they're like, man, I wish things would change. And it's like a few months later, I wish things would change. I hope things would change. I hope things would change. It's like, that's a disrespectful friendship with hope you got there, because it sounds like you're essentially just waiting for them to serve you, and you're just doing nothing
until you'll do something.
Then. And it's like, there's nothing wrong with hope itself. The essence of hope is beautiful, and it's part of like what makes humanity blossom. But it's like the same thing with positivity. Positivity is great. I'm naturally inclined to positivity. I used to do it to a very unhealthy degree. I used to be positive in the sense that I would sugarcoat things that were clearly dangerous for people's happiness, health, and well-being. And then I went through a phase of extreme nihilism around 18. And that was like, I had an extremely dangerous relationship with pessimism. And, you know, then it started to finally kind of find its balance over time. But I would say it's like, whatever, you know, mindset you have a respectful friendship with that mindset. And don't understand that everything in life requires diversity. It requires that you have a million different ways to adapt to the different things that happen, that you're realistic in a room full of optimistic people, that you're pessimistic in a room full of idealistic people, that you're pessimistic in a room full of, you know, just like whatever, you know, that situation needs, allow yourself to be the counterweight so that there's balance in the room, you know?
Well said, Libra.
Yeah, I'm sure you have a lot of experience being balanced in the room, Jax. David. You go.
I was about to say, since we're dealing with a lot of holes, that there's a lot of opportunities right now in life too that we can't forget about with these aspects. But with lots of opportunities, there's a lot of candy in the candy store. There's a lot of opportunities in life that we're going to be looking at, but I think that the equality of this Saturn-Jupiter is lots of options, but let's be serious and take them seriously, right? Like, I mean, I really kind of like taffy, but I'm not gonna mount up on taffy.
Standards.
You know what I mean? Like I like a payday just because it's got peanuts in it and caramel, you know. So it kind of like is candy, but I'm also getting some peanuts in it. You know what I mean? Like, there's something to say, like it's kind of like a meal too, if I need to, or back in the day when I ate chocolate, like a Snickers bar, you know, like are you hungry? Like, you know, kind of gave me more than just, you know, eating some Laffy Taffy.
This is getting better. There's jokes on Laffy Taffy.
Yeah, so I know. So
peanuts.
This is where I think though that there is a lot of options, but you know, I'm going to use the whole analogy because everybody wants to know what I was meaning by that. Well, it was funny because when Sarah said it's Scorpio season, there was, you know, nobody, you know, I forgot what you said, nobody got out alive or something. I was about to be like, yeah, and a lot of holes closed and a lot of holes have opened.
Why it's making me laugh.
But
You're containing well.
but there's something to say, and because we are changing the masculine tone, and I actually wasn't going to say this because I was like, this is so old masculine, but I'm going to look at this differently. So it's like, okay. There are these amazing new opportunities in life right now. And it's like virgin holes, right? Like when you're a virgin yourself and you go into we're finishing Scorpio, so I'll go there. When you're a virgin and you lose your virginity, it's a very weird experience. It's not normal. It's a very like, what is this, you know? And you kind of do feel like you cross over to some other weird threshold. And I feel that right now, as you get older and you learn, you know, there's like with relationships right now, with projects or anything that's in front of us right now in life, there's this either like, okay, I'm hopeful, but at the same time, like, let's really fucking see, right? But it's like, we're going to just play that thing the whole time, because if you play too much of one side, you might be too hopeful and get down there and it's like, no, never mind. Or you might be like, whatever hole in the world you end up in, you know, you're like, oh, I should have given this more, but it's so great, but I didn't give it enough in myself. Like I just am feeling low or something. I think that there's a lot of reflections right now of helping people see that there's so many gateways right now. And I feel like these choices that are coming up, of course, they're easier when you receive and you just allow these things to come in, but there is still that offensive that Mars and Scorpio presents, which is like you must move the queen still on the chessboard. Like it's not like we're playing with pawns right now. They're big. Mm-hmm. And it takes a lot of guts to pull the queen across the whole board, right? Because if you lose it, there's a feeling of like, the game, I could lose the game now. There's risk right now in this life. And I feel that the risk is not a risk if it's coming from a space of true intention and true purity. It's not coming from an egoic like place. It's not coming from a overly root chakra / overly hope to, like this will just save my life, or this is just going to be my savior. I think there's a lot of savior complex.
Like idealistic.
Yeah, there's a lot of, like what I've been noticing is I'm like, will this save me my life? No, actually it won't. So why am I even freaking out? I don't even freak out, actually. I'm actually kind of in a place where I'm looking at everything like, well, I really feel like I'm at a place where there's just like a million doors, and I'm just kind of sitting here like, I'm just ready for the universe to show me which door is the one, even though I have to also make a choice. We're at a really weird spot that's very confusing, and it reminds me of virginity, just because of the fact that that's a very weird line. When you're like, are we going to do this? Like, it's like in The Notebook, like when they do it on the floor.
I feel like I'm going to pause on the floor scene. I feel like what I see currently, and it's actually a riff off of last week's show and talking about the holidays coming up and talking about a lot of the family stuff that's been coming up, and feeling like this moment is a moment of not just sovereignty, because that word I feel like can be overused kind of in the spiritual community in a way that can be a little bit exclusive or isolating. I think it's more about being willing to not fight yourself on being honest about who you really are and what you really need in terms of fulfillment in a career. What do you really need in terms of fulfillment in a relationship? What do you really need in terms of fulfillment in a day-to-day routine? And being okay with the fact if that looks different from how you imagined yourself to be, and being okay if it comes back to the codependency thing. I mean, this has been the biggest thing for this Mercury retrograde, I think, is where are we codependent to anything in life in terms of it's time to be a unique individual. It is time to own the fact that you are who you are and love who that is, and be like, that's not for everybody. I am not everybody's flavor. I'm not. And I'm willing to let go of what isn't truly meant to fit so that I can really receive what's meant to be mine. And there's a lot of resisting that right now, because we are convinced that we want something or that we desire. Let's say we're in a relationship. We're convinced that you're the one, and all that needs to change is you, or maybe all change. But it's like, no, it's okay. It is okay that we're different. If we were meant to be in this dynamic, that would be. And instead, let's change the dynamic. And let's be fully ourselves, and let's welcome a different relationship. And we don't have to, it's not black or white. We don't have to be like, fuck you, you're not the one, bye. It can be different, And that's where I feel like the end of this Mercury retrograde, as it goes direct, let's create a third way. Let's create a new neural pathway. Let's create a new opening into what's possible that comes from a real discernment and choice, and that Scorpio way, that choice of like, this is my truth, this is who I am, and that's great, And
all I want to add in this moment is just some trivia, but the original meaning of the Virgin is a woman who is self-sufficient unto herself. It's not actually a state of being, you can fill in the blanks there, but
no holes involved.
I was going to say like a status on Facebook now. Virgin or not virgin?
Oh, dear God.
Yeah, it's nothing like that. It's actually more about what you were just saying, Sarah, where we're just owning our own preferences, our own lane. You know, something that we've been talking about, I feel like, for months, is owning our own lane and being okay with, you know, you can't have everything and you don't need everything.
Right.
And it's never just one more thing that you can have that's going to make it all okay.
Yep.
It's about the core relationship you have with yourself and whether or not you're willing to step up to meet your own needs on your home front. And that's the most empowered position to be in, because that's when the things that are truly meant for you, that are truly the most sustainable, you know, integral, powerful, and aligned, can come to meet you on equal ground. And if we're not meeting ourselves on that core level of, you know, let's say it for the sake of this conversation, of our personal, in this redefinition of our personal virginity, of our personal self-reliance and our self-empowerment, then all the other stuff is just candy. It is just something to sink our teeth into for the moment until the real issues come back in another form, in another way, another shape, to make us face where we're not in tune with ourselves. And that's going to be the name of the game in the Aquarian age. It's not about giving your consciousness up over to some other thing, whether that's a relationship, a twin flame partnership, a religion, a guru, whatever. It's about being you to be you and experiencing the miracle that you are in every moment. So I think this is the threshold of that transition. And it's about getting really, really back to the beginning, simple with ourselves. What does that look like? What is the golden mean for our lives that makes our lives shine, that makes us shine? You know, it's different for all of us. Some of it is, yeah, maybe being a bit of a caretaker, because that empowers a part of us. Some of it is about being really self-responsible to what our body, our mind, and our emotions need on a daily basis. And those rules aren't written into the collective. Those ways of living don't exist in an external form that you can just grab onto and live by and feel okay. You have to find them yourselves, and you have to own them for yourself. That's the way forward.
This is where shadow work comes in too, because this is where, in this moment, where we say, oh, I know who I am, I know what I want, and then you are watching yourself unconsciously do these behaviors and act out that says something different. And it's like, this is the moment of self-honesty as well, where it's like reframing and revisioning our definition of shadow work, even, you know, and grief. It's all the same thing. It's like being willing to not know yourself so well, being willing to not know what you think you want and what you think you need so well, but being willing to listen on a deeper level and to lean in to where, ooh, I'm saying this and I think I'm clear, but why am I still acting in this way? Why am I saying I want to be this responsible person and then having these spurts of just spontaneous, you know, overindulgence and immaturity? It's like, because you're not being honest. You're trying to play a role that you aren't meant to fit. So you're repressing something. Listen, lean in. And there's nothing wrong with that, this human nature. But right now, I think we all have a lot of shadows coming up that are like, hey, it's me, I'm you. Can we live your real life now? Can we know that we're all worthy and try this out?
Yeah, riffing off that and going back to David's chess metaphor, it's like the movement of the queen. You know, like the educated chess player might be more fearful than the uneducated, and will be more fearful than the uneducated player when he moves the queen. It's like, why? It's like, well, technically he's more educated, so he should be less fearful because he understands what the opponent's other moves could be. But the uneducated player moves fearlessly the queen to the other side of the board, which might be a safe move, it might be a dangerous move, but they move that way because they don't necessarily know any better yet. They're just getting started. They hear that the queen character can move all the way across the board in any direction. That's pretty cool. And it's important for us to remember, if we're a really educated chess player, It might be scary to move our queen, to make our big move right now, because it potentially could be our downfall. But remember the fact, remember the bliss of being the uneducated chess player, and remember the education we have as the educated chess player to put those two things together, to allow ourselves to take moves that are risky, but to understand that we actually should be more confident than we think. We're educated. We understand that, there's only so many, characters that can take out the queen, in that particular position.
That's so great.
Yeah, and I always test every chess player, and I'll give away my secret because I'll do 4-move checkmate on them, and 4 moves pretty much 8 out of 10 players I play. It's very easy to do 4-move checkmate, and it's a very offensive move. It's very like dun 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 dun. Let me see if you didn't see it. Checkmate. 4-move checkmate, and maybe that's my Mars in Scorpio, but.
Definitely your Mars and Scorpio.
I think it is a very good analogy that, it's especially the same way. I mean, but it can be used negatively if we take a race car, for example. If I get somebody into my Corvette, that 0-1, that thing does 212 miles an hour, 0 to 60 in 2.85 seconds. So I know the power of that car. Doesn't mean I'm going to sit there and just all right, just, you know what I mean? I know the conditions, I know the moment when to do it, but you put somebody that's not really ready to get into this motherfucker and zip, zip, pull, zip, zip, kill somebody, Same thing in racing jet skis, we have licenses, We actually have a license. So, there's something to say about this is the Saturn-Jupiter thing, totally. Where it's we've got to have our restrictions, our limitations of how to use such big energy. I think that's the best way to use it because both are the two biggest planets, so both are big energies. I don't think that one is better than the other or something like that. Saturn is going to get you to your destination, and Jupiter is too. They just have different ways of doing it.
Well, they're the wholeness of the expansion.
And together they can make amazing, beautiful things happen. Because they're the two biggest, and you add hope and you add realistic and you add some sort of plan to hope, and holy cow, what do you get? You get to the actual destination. So with Neptune at its final retrograde aspect this week, since next week we have a new moon in Sagittarius and Neptune will come direct on the moment of the new moon, there were literally a week left of Neptune retrograde. It's a very thin veil. This is also Neptune exactly halfway through the sign of Pisces, its home sign. So we've made it halfway through the transit, and we're finishing the halfway through point, and we're at the final stop. And Neptune stopped is the second slowest planet. So it's a very, especially in Pisces, even though Mercury retrograde is going to end and we're going to see the sun come into Sagittarius and we're going to see this Venus Jupiter, there's going to be all this excitement and there's going to be all these curveballs, there's going to be all these great things. There is something to say about also don't forget it might feel extremely dreamy or it might feel extremely disassociated, whoa, is this all really happening? And it's that moment where you go, okay, there is something to say about this retrograde, because once Neptune comes out of retrograde next week, all we're waiting on is Uranus and Chiron, and that's it. Everything else is direct, right? So it's we're coming into a massive amount of energy of direct motion. And Neptune is this last piece here that's creating this weirdness, this confusion. And I think that there is a surrender moment, which Dylan had said at the beginning of the show, that is very important to this moment. And I think you can fight, or you don't have to fight. The way that you can deal with the disassociation is by accepting it instead of continually third-personing yourself in it. Is this really happening to me? And getting kind of lost into that overwhelming conscious state. I think that that's another trigger going on right now, is over-consciousness. Instead of being in the moment and really enjoying the moment and enjoying this time. Because it's... I don't think that a butterfly turning from a cocoon, as this has been an analogy used a couple times tonight, I don't know if it's really... It's a pretty serious moment. But I also don't think that you disassociate and kind of go, I'm going through this, for the whole time. You know what I mean? Right? I don't think when we were born, I don't think that we were I'm being born right now. There's just kind
How
of
do I get this right?
Right? You're just it's like you're just being in this moment, and we're wired that way better. I think consciousness is beautiful, and I think it's great, but I think that it can cause really traumatic aspects when we overly consciously go into consciousness too deep and forget about reality and forget about enjoying the moment and watching the dream happen, or watching the spiritual magic happen. I think that this is about magic. And I think that this is a magical moment. And even though magic is such a beautiful and overwhelming thing, there becomes a part when a magician starts to have more fun by utilizing the magic and enjoying the magic, opposed to still being, I don't know, like shocked and awed by the magic. Like there's a part where it's like, that's what mastery is about. And Sag is about mastery. It's about becoming a master. We all have to be our own masters of our own magic now. And a master doesn't get all Gemini about it. I mean, like, it's so sparkly the way that it comes off your, thing, and like can just talk about that one sparkle, which is great and it's exciting and it's stimulating for a moment. But then it becomes kind of like, okay, like there's a lot more that this sparkly aspect does. And this is where I think the mastery is coming in, is like, you can be excited about the magic and the awe of it, but also at the same time, like, don't be afraid to also enjoy it and start to use it and start to be in it. Because I think that this retrograde can also recluse people in a moment where, now with Mars and Scorpio, I understand with Mars and Libra, like we've been on the fence, like with Mercury retrograde, like, but now with Mars and Scorpio, Mercury direct, and Neptune at this final place, like, don't recluse with all these opportunities of these, whether you want to call them magic moments that are going to show up into your life, and these curveballs that are going to be coming. And I think curveballs are cool, because I think that these are magical, exciting moments coming in. And don't back all the way out, like show up even if it's uncomfortable. Show up even if it feels a little disassociated or it feels a little too unreal. But go into it, and if it feels really off after you've known in yourself that you've shown up with your spirit, you've shown up with your true self, I love how today Sarah really brought up, like, step into whoever you are and don't try to be anybody else. Like, if you're if I'm a house music record, I'm not going to go try and be like a classical music record. Like, I'm not going to go and say, can you re-wax me? You know what I mean? Like, it's like, no. Because owning this and knowing this and vibration coming together right now, whatever it might be, is a magical moment. And instead of watching the synergy so much, enjoy the synergy, like be part of the synergy. Because I noticed that people start to go into disassociative realms, or this is where people try to escape too, right? Like they take things too far. It's scary. Neptune retrograde is scary at its station, because people are not paying attention to how thin the veil is. That includes within their self. That includes, you were saying earlier, Sarah, about like how people can go kind of overindulgent out of nowhere. Mm-hmm. Neptune rules escapism. And this could be spiritual, right? It could be just like, oh my gosh, like I'm just going to lose myself in doing this practice all the time, like, and to so far, right? Or I'm going to do ayahuasca ceremony 25 times in this next day. Like, it's like, whoa, like maybe, like knowing how that the veil is thin. And I actually channeled this in my intuitive this week on High Vibe. I felt that there was going to be a massive amount of energy and people that were going to leave the planet this week.
Yeah,
well, go ahead.
I was going to say, yeah, with Neptune going direct, it feels like it's going to be extremely refreshing, especially for people in the spiritual community. But the thing that they need to remember is, just because there's all this influx of energy coming in, if you're in love with the magic, you'll hold it accountable. If you're in love with, your relationship with the magic, you will hold it accountable and make sure you're not getting lost again, because then that's like you missed the whole point. Like the magic is part of you. The magic is part of life. The magic isn't everything, but it's not literally everything. There's other things besides that. And being in tune with both at the same time is what keeps you a person, rather than this like idea of an oracle,
Mm-hmm. My well, you can go if you
No,
want.
go ahead.
I'm gonna go back to what you were saying. because I was getting this, I'm getting the funniest vision. And it's essentially because the day that we have that beautiful conjunction of the Jupiter Venus, we have the same day, Mars oppose Uranus, which is a little
But the
bit
dark moon, exact.
right, which is a little bit different. And the moon is conjuncting Mercury, which had just stationed direct in Scorpio. And Scorpio has to do with things hidden, has to do with like kind of these secret things and secret doors. And I was imagining this like magic show, and we're standing on this stage, and there's this curtain in front of us, and you know when you're like waiting for the curtain to come open and you're like waiting for the show to start. But what if you were waiting and you just hear all of this banging and just crashing and just like chaos, and there's like booms of light, and all you can see is this curtain, and you're just like, this is not looking good. Like I do, like this is, should we go? Like, should we cash our tickets in and go? But if you wait and all of a sudden the veils open, the curtains open, the show begins, and this golden white light just like opens and spreads through everything, and this beautiful life presents itself, and you can't make sense of it because your senses can't make sense of what you heard and what you see. They don't match up, but you're so in awe of where you are and what's here that you just receive it, you know, and you already bought the tickets. You've already made the choices. We're in denial if we think that we haven't made the choices. We have, and we're just catching up with ourselves. And we're gonna be there no matter what. It's happening. It's happened. It's happened. What are we gonna do to help ourselves get there with the most grace in the meantime? And you brought up grace before, and I think for me, I mean, grace has been a very intimate invitation this year for me, and I'm learning more and more that grace is everything other than what I think grace is. You know, grace is actually is really what shows up when it's the most seemingly ungraceful, when it's the bumpiest.
Graceland and Elvis ate peanut butter and jelly, or peanut butter and bacon sandwiches.
Banana. Yeah.
But there was bacon.
Bacon would make it better. Yeah. I mean, but grace is having the ability to lean into what's messy. Mm-hmm. And to do that with grace means that you aren't forcing it to be any other way. It means that grace means you're there. Grace means you're non-attached. Grace means you're in surrender. Grace means you bring compassion to something that you don't understand, you know?
Grace is rooted in graciousness, and that means that you're not dishonoring anything that's taking place in that moment.
Yeah.
Whether it's a feeling you're having, a reaction someone else is having, it's about being able to handle, you know, or not even handle, but just to be with all the vast different faces of life and still let it flow and still resist the urge to resist the urge to have an urge, but rather to just be present to what's going on.
To be with. I like how you said that. To honor and be with what is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's not a long sentence.
But there is something about still taking some sort of action in this. Like Gandhi did send a letter out.
And that too is graciousness.
I think grace is active.
Yeah.
I don't think grace is passive.
Totally. I just am telling people, like, because there is something to say that this Jupiter-Venus is rare with the sun. Mm-hmm. It's going to be in Sagittarius. So the sun's happy, Jupiter and Venus are happy. But this is weird because the balsamic phase of the moon, a dark moon, is when literally the moon is at the last 30 degrees, balsamic phase, it's coming towards the sun. So you only see the moon right before the sun rises, and it looks dark, and it's the opposite of the crescent moon that you see after a new moon, which is beautiful. You always see it rising, you know, after the sunset, you know, like, and it's always like, oh, it's so beautiful. But the dark moon's opposite. You got to be up like at 4:30 in the morning.
Actually, have you seen it though?
Yeah,
I think it's actually more beautiful.
Well, so but what's going to be interesting is Mars is, you know, finally come away from the sun enough almost here to where you're going to see Mars.
But it's like it's what you see before you see anything.
Right, but it's going to be very faint, and it's there, and there's Mars starting to show up, because with Mars, right, like Mars is.
But David, it's like not everybody's up at that hour to see it.
Right. But
so that's what makes it special too.
It's weird because it's very dark energy, just speaking like kind of hypothetically, and then this very light energy at the same time.
Well, it's like Pisces and Neptune, right? It's that transitional.
And so there is a huge desire of a dark moon in Scorpio on Mars, in opposite to Uranus and Taurus, of hunger that's very extreme and radical and almost wanting instantaneous gratification out of nowhere, like a lightning bolt, like that. And then you got Zeus giving the goddess of love all of her power and energy. It really becomes like a really magical moment, but there's discernment of Saturn and Pluto being like, okay, who's going to handle it how? Like, I think they're freaking out. a little bit. Like, man, like, talk about an Adam and Eve moment, you know?
But I think that's also changing the root of how we identify with these archetypes, and understanding that Venus isn't getting her power from Jupiter, and Jupiter isn't getting his power from Venus. It's an embrace. And that's where grace happens, you know. And to embrace something is an action too. It's not necessarily the most yang, like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do this, you know, like put it all on the line kind of action. It's actually more about
just choice,
receiving something, but choosing to receive something.
Yeah, I agree. I think the positive of the archetype, though, is, I mean, Zeus is the one that kind of gives the power to these archetypes, right? He was the god of the gods, right? The king of the kings. And it's like he really accepts Venus, I think, because he really wants Venus, you know, in a weird way. Yeah, so there is a weird archetype there of us all really wanting things. And when you get Scorpio and Taurus, and you get Mars and Scorpio, you know, hunger is extreme. And you got the North Node in Cancer. There's all these fulfillment things that come up. So it you know, what is it inside of you that you haven't been paying attention to fulfill yourself? But also there are things that are gonna start to show up that are gonna be there, but to be somewhat discerning, but also at the same time, don't close all the doors. Like, I mean, this is mastery work. And I don't know. That's kind of the coolest hole I'd want to be in.
Yeah, it's like if we're a swimmer, we're going to find ourselves in high elevation right now. If we're someone who's used to the top of the mountains, we're going to find ourselves in the lowest valleys. And we're going to have to be comfortable in positions that feel like they're the exact opposite of what we desire and what we're used to, what we're comfortable with. And it's not always easy to transmute some of these energies, but the thing is, it is possible. It is possible. So no matter how much it might feel easier to worry about how that's going to look, or if you can do it, it's like, just walk into each day saying, you know, I can transmute these energies. I can make these into something. I can possess this energy and turn it into something that's useful, because it feels like we're going to be called to that, honestly, like this entire next month. It's going to be all about taking these false images and then actually saying, wait a minute, maybe it's not a false image at all. Maybe I just need to hold it to a slightly different light and allow the real image to come through, you know?
It's a prism.
Take it away, Dylan.
Well, we're all prisms. We're all refracting light deep into the core of our being. I mean, we're filtering consciousness. That's what we do. So I think the main challenge is, what are you looking for in what you're filtering? Like, what is the true emphasis of this consciousness that you embody? Is it something that's been handed to you, programmed into you, that's been taught to you as valuable, something that is desirable, or that if you attain it, it will make you something greater? Or is it by holding fast to your true stance in this world as the unique, once in all of time creation of source experiencing itself? And if you hold fast to that, what are you doing? You're holding space for a whole new potential to come into the world. If just a handful of us were to do this at this time, then we are holding space for a whole new potential to be born through us. So it's really about, no matter where you may stand, whether if you're a mountaineer that's finding themselves in the ocean, or a long distance swimmer that's finding themselves on the top of the mountain, you're still able to hold that original truth of your being in this time. And I think that goes all the way back to the beginning when we were talking about simplicity. It's like, that is the divine simplicity of who we are. It's, are you holding true to the truest truth of your values? It's not even values. It even goes deeper than that, I think. It's really just your unique consciousness. And like I was saying with the golden mean, and kind of understanding where that lies, it's not about some huge world-shattering or world-changing ideal or concept. I think it's just about being very simple and true to who you've always been, and knowing what those kernels, those really like granular, specific, unique, like these points in your prism that are like singing with life and light and beauty and joy. These are the things that carry us through even the most confusing and dark moments. These are the things that allow us to start anew after a dark time in a positive direction. And I think, if anything, in this time, that's what, sciences and systems like the ones that all of us on this show use are the best for. They're a reconnection to that original source imprint that we came into this world to live. And if we do find ourselves in a space of misplacement or misdirection or just feeling lost, we have something to access that can bring us back to that truth and remind us and help us remember who we are. Because when we remember, no harm comes into this world. No bad happens. Nothing truly terrible can come when we resonate with the truth and the source of who we are. So choose wisely. Choose wisely what prism you see yourself through. And if you do choose wisely, the next great chapter of the next highest level of consciousness, of which we've never seen the likes of ever before, is yours. And it's better than anything you can attain by the standards of the ages that have come before us and set the conditioning patterns.
Yeah, I think that's great. If you guys want to finish with your final thoughts here, this is definitely, was well said.
That was so good, yeah. I guess, yeah, I think, and like ending with remembering who you are, remembering what we are, what are we here for, and doing the show. It's like, it's so great to get to do this show and get to talk about these things and get to connect with all these people. But it's even greater that like we get to connect, that like these people are in my life and that these souls are here, and just remembering the beauty of that, the magic of being present to where you are, behind where you are, and like what's happening. And just, yeah, the power of remembering who you are. And when you truly honor all of who you are, there's so much space to honor who everybody else is. And we don't need anybody else to change. We don't need them to feel anything else. We don't need them to be anything else. We don't need this relationship to be a certain title or label or anything. Like, there's so much space for life to happen more organically and joyfully for everybody when we do that for ourselves. So take a risk and be willing to be who you really are, to find out who that is, to have it look completely different than what anyone told you it was supposed to look like. Go rogue, divert. And in the same token, like, stay true, stay aligned.
Yeah, it's like acceptance of the person that you really are, the imperfect person that you really are, is ironically 10 times more beautiful than the perfection of yourself that you imagine, that you like, you know, whip yourself for not being. It's like it's like no one needs you to be perfect right now. No one needs you to be perfect now or ever. You don't have to be. You'll surprise yourself with, if you give yourself acceptance as you are right now, you'll surprise yourself with how incredibly competent and amazing you can become in all these different ways. And it's just like, fall in love with each day right now. Like, just spend time whenever you have the opportunity, whenever you're overthinking and you're investing a bunch of time in that, take some of that energy and say, you know what, how can I fall in love with this moment? Like, is there anything around me to fall in love with? And if the answer is no, then it's like, find yourself elsewhere. Like, whether it's like because you're in the wrong house or you're like in the wrong, you know, place or whatever, find somewhere where you can find that love. It's actually really funny. I had a Libra moment the other day. It was like a Libra blonde moment, but it was like, I was like talking to my friend and I was like, it's like recently I've been feeling like I'm in love, but like with life. And she's like, oh, okay. So you're like in love with life. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's already like a phrase that's been around for like a million years. It's like, yeah, it's like that. And, yeah, it's just like all we need to do right now is find the love in our heart. We'll connect with the right people. We'll find our great talents. But it's like we don't need to spend so much energy on polishing right now. Like, we need to spend energy on actually experiencing life right now, is what it feels like to me. Take it away, Dylan.
So my final words are for those out there who feel that they are not finding that belonging or that sense of connection, or that laughter or those tears, or that they're being held. And I want to remind you that every moment that has ever been in the history of the universe and every moment that will ever be is a moment of change. And if those people aren't in your life right now, don't lose hope. Don't think that this is the last time that the last chance you're gonna get to find that sense of belonging in your life, because it's always just a matter of perspective, of attitude, and being able to, regardless of outer circumstances, access you. So if that seems to be absent from your world now, just take heart, hold true to yourself, laugh with yourself, find joy in the ways that you can, and don't get too in your head about it, because that's where you'll keep yourself away from the things that are already coming to you. We're all designed in this life to find who and what we need, and life is here to serve us. Don't let any other external authority tell you otherwise. And sometimes it's just a matter of patience, and sometimes it's just a matter of waiting for your day to come, and it will come. And if you really need realignment, get in touch with an expert, because there's plenty of us out there to help you get through moments like this. So, aho.
Yeah, that was very important, I think, for people, and I think I'm going to bring out my Leo King now, finally. One, this is an ultimate gift coming for everybody. But an ultimate gift is not something that you squabble over. This is not a survival moment that you have to feel like, what do I have to do? Do I need to go outside and go, right? Because this is a very, like, where it's not so much even patience. Like, it really is just, like Dylan just said, just everybody said, really just being in yourself to be able to have the ultimate gift come. But there's a movie, which I recommend everybody to watch, called The Ultimate Gift. It makes me cry every time. It's about a young man who his grandfather dies, but it's like a billionaire grandfather. And so the whole family is like at the boardroom waiting to see what's in the will. And they all don't get the money, the big billions of dollars, but the son who's been given, or the grandson who's been given everything, like a car, a nice apartment, all that, all he gets is a DVD, and he's all pissed. And when he turns it on, it's his grandfather being like, I've got a series of 5, challenges for you to go through. And with this, I'll give you the ultimate gift. And it was for him to like find his true self and be humble. And with the sun trining Chiron this week and Mars quincunx Chiron, a lot of Chiron activity this week in Aries, but a positive healing of the vulnerability of finding that true essence of yourself and allowing it. And this is not a survival moment of squabbling what's on the table, squabbling over what gift is what, but allowing things to just truly be, but also that there is a hope. Today I used the Beauty and the Beast analogy of the beast, like, what a lucky motherfucker. Had a beautiful girl named Belle who showed up in his house and broke the curse and fell in love with him and his crazy, and he was just himself, in many ways. And then somehow it all worked for him. And he had these awesome little, cups and stuff that just wanted to just clean the house and make all these things and chip and all the, wow. The whole time it was all around him, and he was looking at his life like it was so horrible. He just stood at that rose and looked at it. It was wiltering, and every day it's to where, he's going to be cursed with this for life. But it all came from him also being in a position of like, oh, you're a decrepit homeless person who wants something from me. Like, get out of here. It's like, but again, she was this beautiful witch underneath that. So don't let things that show up to you, don't let your own ego's squabbling desire of survival that's all you need, that this is what kind of fuel you need to survive. You don't know if there's better fuel in there. You don't know if what's really underneath with Chiron and Aries, you don't know, the wrapping might not be, as Jackson said earlier, it might not be what you intended to think was behind that. And the best thing about unwrapping gifts is you can guess all you want. You get pretty good when you're a kid because it's usually the same stuff. But when you get older, you're even lucky if you get a gift anymore, But really, we're surrounded by more gifts every day that we live in this life. But this ultimate gift is the combination of all the gifts that you've been given and how they're all aligning at one moment to finally domino together to create the ultimate gift, if you allow it. And surrender to that, because this is going to be that moment. And it's not going to be, I don't know, everything is tied together. This is not going to be things that weren't tied, that just fly out of the sky and just fall on you and go, oh my gosh, you're going to see a trace that was throughout all the gifts that brought you to the moment of the ultimate gift. So don't forget that. And just know that you might not be able to see the ties between things right now because it's hard to see, fishing line, it's like invisible in many ways, but it's still there. You can't see the ties between the earth and the sun and the magnetic connection of gravitational pull around that sun. You can't see it, but it's there. And it's powerful and it's strong. So this is where we're going to start to see them. And I think open our eyes and see connections that we never saw before coming together, and see the magic that is creating the universe is the magic that's in our life and creating the gift that's showing up in our life at the same time.
One more thing. Sarah and I have a special collaboration going on. So for the first time, we're going to be offering a special selection of readings that we're going to collaborate on in terms of I'm bringing human design, she's bringing astrology. We've, in our own work, seen time and time again how these two systems work really well together and actually show a lot of parallels, as well as very different things that actually support you in owning your truest self. So if you want to jump on that, you can email us, and our info is in the bio description box.
Awesome.
Yeah. And we'll be posting more information on social media as well following this week.
Yeah. Tomorrow it's going to fully debut, but you can email us at any time if you want.
But it'll be a session with us together.
Yeah.
One-on-one with you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then we're all going to film some promo stuff because we want to all have live audience come to talks like this.
Yes.
So we're going to be putting that information out here in the next week or two. So it's going to be pretty cool.
Oh, yeah, our email.
Oh.
Yeah, my email is it's growingdeep@sarahposh.com.
And mine is Dylan, DYLAN, @thespiritadvisor.com.
Yeah. Thank you, Craig.
And let's all see. I know it doesn't seem, it's so funny is when it's moments like these where it's very like, I don't want to call it hum-diddy hum-dum, but it feels a little hum-diddy hum-dum. That
That's when the most is happening.
Pinocchio becomes a real boy, And
I'm so excited for everybody.
yeah, and it's like one of those things where you kind of like, I'm so excited for you. Very much.
Yeah, that's so true.
But I think that we've all been through, not a lot. I think that we've all been through beautiful things. This has been a very good cleanse and a very good update to fully integrate. When an update on your computer sitting at 99% or your iPhone or anything, you're like, but then once it turns on, it turns on. There's a big turn on coming on, and it's going to be a big one. So this is also 12 days till Jupiter leaves Sag and enters Capricorn. So
12 days, 12-year cycle.
Yeah.
Auspicious time.
Yeah.
Every day counts.
It's, you can feel it if you tap in.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks for being a part of highvibe.tv. Make sure that you check everybody out that was on the stage tonight, part of the show. We always put their descriptions underneath. I want to thank all the guests. Thank you for being on, and thank all of you for being subscribed and being a part of highvibe.tv. Check us out. Of course, Deep Astrology now is exclusive for highvibe.tv. Of course, on YouTube, you can watch half the show on video, and then you continue to watch the rest of the show. But during the charts, it is blacked out to where you can only hear the audio. But if you want to watch me do the charts and all that, be a subscriber to High Vibe. Not only do you get that show, but you also get tons of my other daily content, my weekly content with all my sun sign horoscopes, my weekly tunes, my weekly tarot, and so many other awesome people in all their daily and weekly and monthly content as well that they make exclusive for highvibe.tv. Truly appreciate you all. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll see you all on the next After Dark.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Believe in yourself.
Woo woo. We're so cool.
So this video is going to give you the tools, it's going to give you the steps, it's going to give you the questions for you to ask yourself to prepare yourself. It's going to give you my opinions on what best course of action to take. And you can take it or you can leave it or you can take parts of it or none of it. To me, as long as you're willing to listen, as long as you're willing to hear me and take it in and ask those questions, do you want to be in it or not? Like that's what the call is. And that is, I think, the deepest part of this energy is when people start going, I want the energy to go back to normal. You want the energy to go back to where you don't have to participate in anything anymore. And you just want to go sit back and watch the whole show. And guess what? The universe is giving you that opportunity here as the build up to 2020. But do you really want that in your life? Is that really, but I'm not saying, maybe I'm saying that because I'm somebody who feels that I don't want it, I don't want that. So I can't judge you for being in that space. But I can tell you from an astrological point of view that sure, it might feel more comfortable to be in that space, but there is going to be something of not being fulfilled.